This is a new season of The Dragon Prince, which means that I'm going to be rambling for a little bit. Last time we did this was with Season 5, where I just couldn't help myself and made a video talking about how Season 5 honestly kind of made me lose hope, because I think it's a pretty common opinion at this point that Season 4 wasn't all that good after the highlight of the quote-unquote finale that we had in Season 3. And then, seemingly, after I made that video, the general opinion on Season 5 seemed to be that it's actually a lot better. I still don't necessarily agree with that, but I was worried going into this season. I am not very shy about telling you that. And I was worried for good reason, because we only have this season left, Season 6 and then Season 7, and then the show should be done. There's a 7-season order for it. It's been 7 seasons planned from the start. So next season is gonna be the finale, meaning that now we have to worry about all of the weird-ass plot threads that got set up in Season 4 and 5 that don't really have any right to belong, to exist. They're not working toward the main goal of the main plot. But we also have to move forward the actual story itself. And that's what Season 6 is going to have to deal with. And that worried me, because we need to nail that, otherwise there's no room in Season 7 to escalate the stakes, have a climactic end, and also have a satisfying resolution. And I am pleasantly surprised with the quality of Season 6 in almost every single way. So I've got a handful of bullet points that I'm just going to go through here, and I'm just going to ramble on, and I'm going to probably tangent a lot, but we'll see what ends up happening. So right off the bat, obviously, spoilers from this point forward. I don't think I can do a very good non-spoiler review of this season. So just all that what I just said, the first 2 minutes, I am pleasantly surprised with specifically the issues that I was afraid of them not being able to deal with. They dealt with somewhat well. If you have seen the season, or you don't mind spoiling yourself for the season, which you shouldn't spoil yourself, I'm going to expound on that right now. So right at the bat, we have the introduction of Viren being alive, and my first thought was, oh, that's a bad start for the season, because we've all been operating under the assumption that Erebos never tells a lie, and that makes for an interesting character. A character that technically never lies, but still is a manipulator. Like that is a not uncommon character archetype. And if we start introducing the capability for that character to lie, that kind of already crumbles apart the entire basis of his character. So I was like, okay, after Season 5, going into Season 6 with very little hope, this is not a good start. But turns out, actually, he didn't lie. Erebos didn't lie. The spell that needed to be done to bring Viren back to life full time didn't have to be done by Viren himself. So Claudia did it in his stead, which plays into Viren still not having to do that dark magic. Claudia being allowed to go even deeper and darker into her path of darkness. So everything adds up together there. And we also get immediately a good reflection moment for Viren, who's like, I am the cause of my daughter's issues at this point, right? And Claudia specifically said, like, I will do whatever it takes for my family, however vile, whatever it takes, right? Which she literally is just a quote that she got from her dad. And Viren already knowing that his actions have led to, like, a normalization of abusing dark magic for his daughter, who's now, like, falling way deeper into it than him, potentially even. Now he is back in, like, a one-sentence thing. Is the thing that he always said. He's like, no. I'm your parent. There's a one-way street, my dude. Parents do everything for their children. Children should never do anything for their parents. Which, it's a little bit, like, more supportive than I'm explaining it right now, of course. But I think that is a good representation of how their character dynamic works. they both act out of a deep, worrying level of love for each other. And I think that is really, really good. Because, of course, anybody seeing this scene would think, yeah, Viren's got a point. Like, a parent should take care of their child, but that children don't necessarily have that same responsibility toward the parent, especially when they're teenagers, right? But at the same time, I think the point here is that doing something out of love is not because of a responsibility. It is because of a innate, selfish kind of desire. Because I don't want to live without this person, so I will do whatever it takes to keep them alive. Not out of a sense of maintaining their life, but out of a sense of maintaining their presence in your life, right? And I think that this season specifically explores what it means to feel love. What does it mean to love someone? Because, of course, we have the very obvious marriage, which didn't really do anything in the last two seasons, that relationship between Janai and Amaya. But now, contrasting that between, like, this is their marriage, their life, their love, in contrast to the way Claudia and Viren's relationship works, and then later even Erebos to his daughter. All those different types of love, all having, like, they're all love, right? But they all are vastly, vastly different in a lot of ways. Like, we have the idealized version of love with Amaya and Janai, and then we have a toxic level of love for Viren and Claudia. And then we have, I think Terry even says it in the last episode. And then we have something that might have at some point started as love from Erebos towards his daughter, but quickly turns into hatred and revenge. And at that point, you could argue that those actions are then still fueled deep down by a love for his now dead daughter, which is obviously horrific, right? But at some point, you're so far removed from that it is just hatred and nothing else anymore. So I think that is the main theme that this... oh yeah, and then of course we've got Callum and Rayla as well, their relationship mending. I think that's just a nice little thing on top. They've been working toward that for the last 3 seasons, them like being awkward around each other and then slowly growing back toward each other. And that being in a season that is so centered around the themes of love, I think that makes sense. So, but they're strangely enough, even though they get the most screen time, I don't think they contribute the most to those thematics, which like tie the season together very well. And that's another thing that I want to talk about here, is how well does this season tie together? Because in previous seasons, I have complained, and not only me, a lot of people have complained about the story and mostly just like the pacing feeling very, very disjointed. And that was probably, in my opinion, mostly due to the fact that they just had too many stories going on. And they were trying to give them all roughly equal screen time. At this point, this season effectively is just Rayla and Callum going on their adventure, with every so often a cutaway to one of the other stories happening. And they also converse at some point, right? So we fairly quickly realize that the bad guy team, we're not going to see a lot of them. We see a bit of it in the beginning where Claudia is at her lowest point and she's like, I'm going to leave you, Terry, so you can't leave me. Which, oh my god, I was so happy for Terry there. Because, I mean, I don't like their relationship. A lot of people don't like Terry as a character. I don't particularly dislike him. But I don't like their relationship. Because there's nothing there. There's literally nothing there. The only reason that they have that relationship is, in my opinion, is to be a mirror for Rayla and Callum. Because if you remember, way back in the day, when this show was consistently good, we had a little thing about, hey, maybe will they, won't they, between Claudia and Callum. And then Callum got a girlfriend, which happened to be an elf, and then they just kind of gave Claudia a boyfriend, which also happened to be an elf, right? That's, in my opinion, the reason that Terry got introduced. And for Claudia to have somebody else once they probably decided that Viren was going to die. Because she doesn't have anything else to bounce off of. But there's no chemistry between them. There's no reasoning why they're in a relationship. There's just, we love each other. Why? Because we do. And that is, like, that is good enough. But that doesn't make for an interesting story. So, actually, no, it's not good enough. Like, it's good enough if you, in real life. And this is the thing that I come back to time and time again. There's one thing that I massively respect the Dragon Prince writers for, and that is that they managed to write these characters as if they were real people, much more than a lot of other stories will do. But I think that they go a step too far into that, because just two people falling in love and being happy together is fine. That's cool. That's beautiful. That isn't a good story. There needs to be a reason for that to happen if you're telling a story. This is not a documentary. This is, well, and even if it was a documentary isn't just a telling of the truth. It is taking true things and telling a story with those, right? So this is kind of the opposite of a documentary in that regard. It's entirely fictional, but they're trying to make it feel as realistic and as human as possible. And mad respect for how they manage to do that at most of the time. But I feel like they sometimes kind of pass over the idea that there also needs to be like a good story that's being told. Specifically with that relationship. So we also have, of course, the Sunfire Elf conflicts. And look, I don't know if this was planned to go this way, because it kind of works out. I feel like there probably was a little bit of course correction to make it end up working out this way, but there's a lot of seeds that were planted fairly early on that come through in like the finale here to make this work. Because what we have is a reason for Sol Ragam to get healed. And Sol Ragam decides, I don't want my eyes back, I want my wings back, which is a huge fucking gamble on Erebos' part. That's part of his plan, right? Because, frankly, a dragon that can see by himself and not fly, or a dragon that can fly and not see by himself, and as such would need a guide to let him see where he goes, and that guy just happens to be a guy that Erebos' bug bit like 3 seasons ago. I don't know. This kind of feels like those are some long odds. So it kind of feels like there was supposed to be a more substantial story with a Sunfire Elf conflict, and it just kind of got sidelined. The moment that battle is about to start, it turns out that entire battle was set up just to get Sol Ragam healed and useful for Erebos' plan, which makes sense in this telling of the story. I like that. That's fine, because it gets rid of one of the sub-stories, and it's the sub-story that the least people cared about. But then, again, we also need this story as like one of the pillars of showing what love is. And this is the most important one, because this shows actual caring love between two people. So has this entire Sunfire story elf been there just for that this entire time? Because if so, I mean, I can see it. We have all this adversity. We have the like interracial, interspecies angle of it, which is getting like some racism in universe. And of course, it's a same-sex marriage, which gets some hate in the real world. So all that build up, all for that makes sense. I can deal with that to a certain extent. But I still think that it does waste a lot of time in previous seasons, setting up, getting to this point. And that is the thing, right? I am very, very happy with this season 6. But we also have had a lot of setup that needed to be done in season 1 and 2 to get to the point where like we have a climax in season 3. And those were still not entirely well self-contained, I will give you that. There's like random characters that are just still like kind of like where season 1 ends at the moon nexus, and there's like the little girl with the wolf around, and then at the start of season 2 she's still hanging around, and after 2 episodes she fucks off, right? That's also like not very well self-contained storytelling. But that's like not a major plot thread, and that's kind of the big difference here. This is the seasons themselves. For 4 and 5 didn't really have much of a conclusion. As far as like literal plot goes, it does. But as far as like thematics and like character direction goes, a lot of like room there left to fill up at the end of both season 4 and 5. Season 6 wraps all of that up fantastically, without a shadow of a doubt. So now your question becomes, does that make season 4 and 5 retroactively better? Or does that make season 6 not as good as it actually, like, in my opinion, is? And that is a matter of taste and opinion. It's one of those things where, do you need the full context of a show to have finished and fully exist when it is like a serialized show like this? To judge any single season, right? Because we could have a very bad season 4 and 5, and then a lot of the stuff that makes season 6 now very good, and potentially is season 7 very good after this, might not have been able to happen if seasons 4 and 5 hadn't happened the way they did. So, should we judge it as one big thing, and does that make this video irrelevant because season 7 isn't out yet? So I can't properly judge things until I have the full story. I think there's two sides to that argument, and I personally think that a season should be able to stand on its own. If a season releases, we have a period of time, be it a year, be it 2 years, where we have that content but not the rest. And that is the period of time where most people are going to see it. Meaning that it should give some resolution and feel satisfying as a season without relying on what comes after it. In the same way that you can't just rely on what came before. You can't just fill a season with running jokes and references to earlier material. That's what does in like a lot of sitcoms, right? At some point, when you're at season 20, every single episode becomes an event episode where just a legacy character shows up, and the show kind of just dies. That's the opposite effect, I guess. Well, same effect, opposite reasoning. Anyway, so those are all the major story arcs. We have a couple of times we cut back to like Viren and his flashback episodes. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I want to just look through my notes here to make sure that nothing else important is going on. Oh yeah, Zubeia just being sidelined as I still need to heal, so that she can't be the literal teleport device for our characters, which she has been in the past. Just like, oh, hop on my back, we'll go to the place we need to be, and there will be no adventure whatsoever. Or just, hey, something is dangerous, we have the literal most powerful thing in the world standing behind our back. They got rid of that because Zubeia is just still sick. They didn't need to kill her off for that. Would have been unnecessarily morbid to kill both of Zim's parents. So I'm glad they didn't kill her off. But they just sidelined her, and at the end of the next season, she's probably going to be... That's actually a good question. Will they kill Zubeia in season 7 so that Zim, just like Ezra or Ezran, will have to become like a young king? That's an interesting thought. Let's theorize on that. Not right now, but just theorize on that in your mind. Um, she's just gonna be like MIA for the most part, I imagine, because she's just a huge plot device otherwise, which everybody's gonna just wait for her to show up. And now it's clear that she's not gonna be showing up anytime soon. So, yeah, Claudia then comes back, and Terry's like, "Oh, I'll take care of you. I'll give you a bath and give you a leg." Terry, my dude, just run. She broke up with you. What seems to have been like a week or so ago. The passage of time in this season is weird. The only real reference to the passage of time we have is Viren's beard, which we only see every few episodes. So the passage of time is not well conveyed at all in this season. And it generally isn't in this show. The passage of time just is a badly conveyed concept in this show altogether. But in this season, they try to make more a point of it. Like, Claudia comes back to Terry. How long has it been? Has she been out there for an hour? Or for a week? That makes the following scenes land differently if we had felt that a little bit more. But this is another one of those, like, just time constraints. If they didn't waste as much time in season 4 and 5, we might have had, like, an entire episode of Terry and Claudia being apart, and then it would feel like there is more like time distance between those two events. But she comes back and Terry takes care of her, and he's a good guy, but dude, just you dodge the dark magic shaped bullets. Just go live a happy life without all this bullshit. But then, of course, Viren had decided to go back to Catullus to face like his fate, his justice, his whatever. And Claudia's like, I need to see him again. He's sworn off dark magic. He's my big hero. If he thinks that maybe I need to see him one more time, have a good talk with him, and maybe he's onto something. And you're like, oh, maybe we'll actually just resolve everything here. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Of course not. So they make the journey back to Catullus, and that's a thing we don't see at all. And I'm so happy that they didn't show anything about that, because it's not relevant to show that. Like, those two characters, that relationship is as hollow as it gets anyway. Don't spend any more time trying to flesh that out, because it's not going to go anywhere at this point, I don't think. And we need more time fleshing out the actual important characters. So we don't see them again until pretty much the end of the season, which is a good thing. Instead, we do see Viren every so often, which is good. And he kind of has the role of the villain team perspective all to himself this season, which gives him the reason to flesh out his backstory and his feelings and his motivations and his regrets so much more, because he doesn't need to be bouncing off of Terry and establishing what their dynamic is like, and working with Claudia, who is overly worried about him, and then coming back and talking to Soren in those weird woods where they were in like season 4, I believe that was, right? Like, you don't need to spend time on establishing dynamics with characters you don't want them to be established with, because he's literally in a jail cell. You can just put the character that you want him to talk to right next outside the jail cell, and they can have a talk. There's nothing like world building wise forcing you to ride around other characters, which gives a lot more room to work with, and I think that is really, really good. And as usual, Viren is one of my absolute highlights in this season, without a shadow of a doubt. His sub-story flashback episode wasn't on par with the flashback episodes that we've had in the past. Things like the season 2 and 3, I think, had particularly good ones. Backstory episodes. The backstory episode kind of got split up into 2 separate whole episodes in this case. We have a Viren sub-story backstory episode, and then we have a Erebos sub-story flashback episode. And Viren's is just like not that interesting. It doesn't tell us that much new. And Erebos is at the very end, is a little cliche, but still kind of hits home. And it gives him a little bit more going for him, but it also kind of robs him of a little bit of the mystique he had. And that's not to say that I didn't want to see Erebos at all in this season. Obviously, I'm happy that we see a little bit more of Erebos, because anytime Erebos is on screen, I am happy. But I was kind of hoping that they didn't want to turn him into such a sympathetic villain, which is to say that I wanted him to be a Thanos. I wanted him to feel like he was doing what is right for the universe. If anybody's read the Kyoshi novels, I'm assuming if you're this deep into the Dragon Prince, you like Avatar, so there's a good chance that you've read the Kyoshi novels. There's the Lao Gi, the immortal assassin in those books, who does some horrible things. He is willing to assassinate like a young teenager who is just like not a good leader, not a good politician, and he thinks somebody more capable should be in that place. The way to get there is to assassinate this kid. And if this video had any chance of getting monetized, it's gone now. And that's kind of how I wanted Erebos to be, is he wants the best for humanity as a whole. He doesn't want the best for any individual person. He wants the best for humanity as a whole. And in that way, he could still differ from the rest of the Star-Touched elves. Because they might think that they need to like stay more away and be just neutral observers and not interact with them too much, and definitely don't be guiding them. But with this, they give him like a sympathetic sob story, like flashback episode, right? And I don't think that they needed to do that necessarily. I liked it. Like, there were a few moments in this season where I like felt genuine emotional reactions, and Erebos and his daughter definitely was one of those. It was probably one of the least ones. Funnily enough, the one where we'll get to Rayla in a moment, actually. But that Rayla had one of like the most emotionally resonating bits for me this season. Let me refer back to my notes, because I've just been rambling for a while. There's this little theory that I've seen going around, and this season does kind of lend a little bit more like merit to it, and that is the idea that Soren and Callum might have been swapped at birth or something. Because Callum specifically says that his biological dad has like this breathing issue, this sickness. And Soren is also said to, as a child, have had a horrible sickness and difficulty breathing, which is the thing that eventually led Viren down to like getting hooked on dark magic. There is something to be said, potentially, for that being a thing. I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. But it's a theory that I've seen floating around, and I felt like it was kind of baseless in the past. It just gives a little bit of evidence to it. I still don't think it's true, though. I want to talk about Erebos' prison, because it is really, really dumb that they made a switcheroo plan and then just took the wrong one. They made an entire fake crystal pearl prison ball thing, and then Rayla and Callum took the wrong one with them. That is bullshit. The season would have worked exactly as well if they didn't do that. If they just said, okay, the pearl is safe at Katolis now. We will go talk to the Celestial Elves to talk about the Nova Blade. We need to go there. Rayla and Callum will go. They're the adventurers to go there, a mage and a dragon guard. And the rest of us will do what we need to do and split up all that work there as well. There's no reason for them to have come up with this plan of making a decoy and then taking the wrong one. I suppose the scenes where I forget his name, the celestial elf that ends up becoming like enlightened, um, being able to like see the future and the visualization of him being the only thing that's in color and everything else being in black and white because he's just like looking through time, seeing, hey, if I do this and say this in this scenario, this will be the outcome, and that means that I might have to do this instead, and all that kind of stuff. That made for a couple of interesting scenes, and I really, really liked that, because while watching those scenes, I wasn't entirely sure what the black and white thing meant. I was like, okay, why is everyone black and white suddenly? It's kind of weird, but I kind of I like it maybe, but I don't quite understand what it's supposed to convey. Until we get to the point where it loops back around and we see the actual course of events, which ends up happening differently because of this like future seeing power now, which is cool. So we have that scene, but that's the only that scene existing is the only reason for the decoy to be a thing. There might be some kind of reason in season 7 that comes up for it, but at this point, like Erebos has been freed. At the end of this season, I don't think the prisoners are going to come back into things too much anymore. So I kind of feel that was just kind of unnecessary, to be honest with you. Because there's no way, right? Well, the first thing that I thought when I heard that is, oh, there's a traitor within Katalis. And I thought a jelly man. I thought it was the baker. No. It could have been any one of them. Maybe one of them got like also somehow like Soren due to his proximity with fucking Viren and Claudia has some like dark magic dust that got in his eye once, and that's how I don't know. Something. But the idea that like Erebos just kind of took over Callum in his sleep and did the swap, that's what's implied. Like, I don't know, it's kind of a weak explanation to me, and it makes a plot point that didn't need to exist to begin with a lot weaker. On top of that, so I don't love it. Okay, I want to complain about one more thing, and then I think I only have positive things to say going forward. There's literally an episode called The Red Wedding. You don't need, and this is the thing that I kind of feel the Dragon Prince did a lot of when it started, and I figured they would grow out of it, but the Dragon Prince is too heavily based on references. Initially, it was more toward Avatar The Last Airbender, which I guess makes sense. You want to kind of like ride that fan wave. But in this season, they had like also a very obvious Lord of the Rings reference where they're like, oh, we can make the Fellowship of the Pearl, and we can go through a journey and drop the Pearl into a volcano. It's just a Lord of the Rings thing, right? And then they literally have an episode called The Red Wedding, which is just, you're better than this at this point. Like, after season 5, I might have not said this, but now that I've seen season 6, you're better than this. You don't need this. You don't need to fill your fucking show with references. You can stand on your own 2 feet. Make the show you want to make. Make your own quality product. Make other people reference you. Don't rely this much on references. It's actually very, very annoying. And having a little bit of a reference here and there is cool. In season 4, when they're underground in like the treasure pile, you can see like Sokka's boomerang and Aang's staff in one of those treasure piles. They're fucking like front and center in your face though. Like put them a little bit more in the background. Then they're fun Easter eggs. Callum's voice actor being the same as Sokka and then going, in I think season 3 that is, boomerang? Why does this feel familiar? It's too in your face. These as well. Stop it. Don't do that. You don't need that. Please. Anyway. I think that's all the complaining I have about this season, which frankly isn't that much. I've been praising this season for the most part. But I think that's all the complaining out of the way. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about that I really, really like. Viren. Viren's final stand. It needed to happen. Viren dying anyway, to send Claudia over the edge, to make her think, see, my dad took a step away from dark magic, and here he is, dead. Even though the thing that ended up killing him was dark magic, but hey, that's some dramatic irony for you. And push her toward, okay, I'm going to release Erebos anyway. That needed to happen. And I don't think there could have been a better way to end Viren's character. The only thing that I'm pissed about is that this means that there's going to be no Viren in Season 7. Because he's now actually definitively dead. But him just refusing to save his own life by taking another creature's, not even another humans, not even another animals, another like weirdly genetically mutated creature's life at the end of the last season. If that would have been it for Viren, I would have been fine. That would have been a good, quiet way for him to go. Him just saying, no. This has been it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Not even at the cost of my own life. This takes that very same concept and turns it up to 11. This is so much better on so many levels. Let's get into every single layer here. So what ends up happening is we have Sol Ragam unknowingly attacking the kingdom of Katolas, and everybody is being evacuated, but everywhere is on fire, people can't pass through, and Soren's like, Dad, Viren, whatever you want to be called right now, you can do a spell. You did a spell in Season 3 that made people fireproof. Do that. And Viren's like, I don't have a Primal Stone to do that. I can't do it. Soren's like, I don't care. You can do it with dark magic. Just do it. Just save these people. And here we get to Viren having another chance, a really good excuse to fall back into using dark magic. And he doesn't want to do it, obviously, because he feels like he's overcome that. He's now clean. Dark magic is very obviously an allegory for drugs. And he doesn't want to. And then he explains that it isn't just any cost to do that spell with dark magic. You need a human heart to do it with dark magic. And Soren's like, fine, use my heart. Got my heart out, use it. Use me to protect these people. And you see Viren putting his hand on the staff, agreeing. And you're like, are they going to kill off Soren? Like, if it is between Soren and Viren, I know who I want dead. Just to be very clear. But I also was unbelievable that they would kill off Soren. So, in the next scene, you see Viren with his staff walking out on the castle. Very slowly. And slowly as the scene progresses, at some point Soren shows up. You're like, what the fuck is going on here? And it becomes clear that Viren has stabbed himself in the heart. And with the last remaining minute of his life before he just bleeds out, he uses his own body as a sacrifice to fuel the dark magic spell to protect everybody in the kingdom. And that is taking that protection of other life, which is the opposite of dark magic, of course, because dark magic works on the concept of you take something else's life to power your lack of magic instead. In Season 5, Viren has understood the value inherent to a life and passively doesn't do it, which he makes the active choice not to do it, but not doing something is a passive action. Here what he does is he knows he has to use dark magic, but he now knows the value of what a life is worth and decides that he is not ready. He doesn't feel good. He does not want to take somebody else's life, especially of course, a human heart. But I feel like even if it was just a fucking a deer or something that they could have used, just the nearest animal, the reaction probably would have been roughly the same. It's just for the viewer pleasure that saying a human life probably hits a little bit harder. But his own life is a human life. So now, that same decision he made, a passive thing, passing up on doing an action, not doing something in the last season, has now transformed into an active decision to put his own life at stake in order to uphold his newfound morals. And that just by itself would have been amazing. But, and I think that this is the extra layer that makes me love these scenes more. Number one, as he goes down, he keeps saying, "I am a servant," which of course is a thing that is deeply ingrained within Viren because of, I think it might have literally been the last words King Harrow said to him. And he is a servant. He is sacrificing, he's putting up his own body as a service to his kingdom, to his people. So something that was, frankly, just Harrow generally is a likable character, of course, but in that moment he isn't. He's being a bit of a dick to Viren, which has deserved it, to be honest, but something that was set in a negative light now comes back again as a show of love. And this is a more generalized show of love. This is a show of love for his people and his kingdom in general. So that is one layer to it, but I think that the most impressive layer here is that the entire point of dark magic is that humans do not have magic inherent to themselves. Callum has managed to weasel his way into magic somehow. I guess we'll figure out how that happened later. Might have something to do with Erebos' daughter. I don't know. I mean, it's sad that she was giving humans magic, so who the fuck knows? But this is the thing. Viren used dark magic using his own body as a source. Meaning that without taking anything else's life, I mean, you can only do it once, obviously, in this case, and you can only do this one spell, because there's other spells that presumably just require non-human ingredients. But the way Viren goes out is using dark magic fueled by actually his own body. It is magic coming from inside him. The very thing that dark magic is supposed to replace is what it is doing right now. I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining why I think this is so brilliant. I think that is my favorite part of that scene, that decision, to make Viren use his own body as a source for dark magic, because it undermines the point of dark magic. And undermining the point of something evil is good, right? So, anyway, I love that. And then obviously we have the finale bit where Rayla goes into effectively limbo to visit her parents, which she decides to let go of her parents. And she brings back Runam at the same time that Erebos is being brought back. I don't think I really need to talk too much about Erebos' backstory here. I've touched upon it a lot about with the theming of the season. I think it is fine. He was a lot bigger than I expected. I mean, I know that Star Trek itself technically, I suppose, can present themselves as any size that they want. But it was a little jarring seeing him standing that big over there. So I'm not entirely sure about that. And how that's going to work in season 7. Is he just going to be walking around human size, or is he always just going to be that gigantic? I don't know. I wonder about that. The more interesting part there, of course, is Rayla reconnecting with her parents. And this is amazing. Throughout the entire season, Rayla is only ever talking about bringing back her parents. And every time Callum says, your parents and Runan, which there's never a point up until the very end where Rayla says, can you just stop doing that, please? They're all my parents. Even if, like, those two are my biological parents, like Runan and I forgot the name, like Athari, are the ones that raised me. All four of these people are, in a sense, my parents. So these 3 coins here are 3 of my 4 parents. And I like that. I like that a lot. I really did. And she decided Runan is the one that we're bringing back, which, mind you, means that we have 1 Quasar Diamond left in the world that we can do something with. I don't know who it's getting used on, when it's getting used, but that doesn't seem accidental, because one of them was used to revive Erebos. It was in Viren's staff. One of them was now used to bring back Runan. And one of them is still around, and Rayla and Callum have it. Very interested to see where that goes. Because I kind of have to imagine that that is the thing that Erebos is after in Season 7, to bring back his daughter with. And that's kind of the thing, right? If Erebos, at this point, is looking for a way to bring back his daughter, we should help him. He's not an evil guy. He just wants his daughter back. Why are we stopping this dude? If he's just about to, like, sow chaos and like be a dick, obviously we need to stop him. But it feels like he's more worried about, like, getting his daughter back, potentially, if possible, than anything else. So I don't know that the idea that Callum keeps saying a great evil is coming back to Zadie, I don't know that that is true at this point. Which again makes him a sympathetic villain, which is difficult to write. It's a villain that I might be potentially partly rooting for, but I didn't want Erebos to be that. So I'm a little disappointed in that. But anyway, so we have Rayla setting her parents free from the eternal torture of dancing with each other. It seemed like they were having a pretty good time in Limbo, I'm not gonna lie. But they are now gone to elf heaven, I suppose, and Runan is the one that gets revived. And Runan initially refusing to accept that mercy of being brought back because he sees himself as a monster, attacking Rayla in the fight in Season 1, and he's like, I tried to attack you, I tried to kill you, I can't do that, you're my... And Rayla's like, yeah, I'm your daughter, we know. Like, that is, strangely enough, the part that, like, actually got to me. There were a few moments, mostly, like, at the big, like, climactic... That's poor choice of words. Like the lovey-dovey scenes, right? So Rayla and Callum finally getting back together. The marriage and the vows between Amaya and Janai, all that kind of stuff. That made me, like, feel feels. But that climax to that, like, quote unquote fight between Runan and Rayla, where Rayla says, "Because I'm your daughter." That is the thing that got to me most. And I think that is, again, it is another one of those things where the theme of this season, the season is called Season 6 Stars. I know that. It's not. It's Season 6 Love. And that is another one of those where I'm like, yeah, that portrays yet another angle of, like, this found family kind of love. Which is, again, beautifully done. And you really feel that as well. Like, it doesn't actively build up toward that, but the fact that Rayla consistently is referring to all 3 of them as bringing my parents back and Of course, we've seen a little bit of the interaction between the two of them in season 1. I just think that is a very good climax to that part of the story. I'm very curious to see where we go from here, because the entire story of the Dragon Prince has been about bringing Erebos back from his prison, and that has happened now. And we know that he's pissed. Presumably pissed at the other starter shelves because of what happened to his daughter. But what does that mean for us? Right? Because if he just fucks off into the heavenly realm and goes confront them, that doesn't concern us. And again, matter of fact, at that point I'm rooting for Erebos. Has this entire 6-season run just been a build-up to freeing somebody that turns out to actually be one of our allies? Just a very powerful actual ally? Because that's what it feels like right now. And I don't think it will be, because we need 12 seasons in order to develop that much story to make that make sense. But I don't know, man. I don't know where we're going with season 7. I am very curious to see where we go. The Dragon Prince season 5 made me lose hope. The Dragon Prince season 6 brought it back. Now the question is that too little too late? Does season 7 have enough time to deliver on a proper finale or not? I don't know. And we won't know for a while until season 7 actually is released, which will be a hot minute. So thanks everybody for watching me ramble for about an hour. That went by very quickly. About the Dragon Prince season 6, and when season I always mess up season 7. It's a tongue twister. When season 7 releases, I will undoubtedly be doing something similar to this again.